I won't get you. He says, tomorrow Jack Dow will phone me and ask, how was he? And I should tell him, you were a darling, you know. And then you'll be all over the bloody country with Mick McManus. Because he said, you know that little bastard? Anybody new who comes into the game, I get him first. If he gives me a hard time, McManus will never step in a ring with him. Oh, you're kidding me. He goes, nope. If I went back tomorrow and told Jack Dow that, no, he's too stiff, he's horrible, this, that and the other, you might get a job here and there with other siffies, but you'll never get in a ring with Mick McManus. 3 months later, I had my very first TV with Mick McManus.
This must have been quite surreal to you.
Oh, it really was, because the first bout I ever had on the full-time circuit was with Jackie Paro, one of the biggest names in British wrestling. And the first TV I ever had, was with Mick McManus, the biggest name.
Bear in mind, a lot of people listening to this might not appreciate, this was when British wrestling was massive. Huge, wasn't it?
Yes. We even drew bigger crowds, right, but TV crowds on Cup Final day than the actual Cup Final.
Yep.
And that's true. Yep. The Albert Hall used to be packed. Everywhere that we worked was full to capacity.
Yeah.
Fairfield Hall was Croydon.
And at this point, so obviously he put a good word in for you, and was you basically full-time with Dale Martins from this point?
From that point on, yeah.
So obviously from now, there is 1,000,001. It's impossible to discuss with you, each and every fight that you had, bout what you had, whatever you would like to call it. Some of the people you worked with that you enjoyed at the time?
The Polish Eagle, which is Johnny Chesloff. Bald-headed. He was a character, but a bloody good wrestler. But then you got the guys who were real crowd pullers, which Nagasaki.
I was going to ask you more about him later. How did you get on with him back in this time period?
Fine. One of the best bouts we ever had on TV, and he ever had on TV, because he said so himself.
Yep.
And that was from Croydon, Fairfield. It was chock-a-block. It was tremendous.
Yep.
He was a nice guy back then. Fit Finley, who has really made his name now in the States, he made his name. He made his name over here first. What a darling, what a sweetheart. He was, as a villain...
Yeah, one of the best, definitely.
One of the best.
What about Les Kellett?
Ooh, Les...
Was he as hard as they say he was?
Harder.
Harder.
Whatever you've heard, he was harder, believe you me. Les is a funny man, right? But he wasn't really funny. I'll tell you, I can't get myself in trouble for saying this now because he's no longer with us, but you walk into a dressing room, Les will be sitting there reading a book, right, with his glasses on. You walk in, you go, hi Les, and you look over the top of his glass, and you go, oh, John. And that's all you get out of him, because he'd be sitting there ignoring everybody. And then eventually you put his book down, glasses off, right, get changed, on goes his long dressing gown, wrapped up again, sits down, book again. And then eventually you hear the words, wrestlers please. And you look around, no one's moving, you say, it must be me. And you push yourself out of the chair, book down, glasses off, and you get to the dressing room door, and just as he's walking through it, a big grin will come on his face. He goes, show his... and walk out. And that's what the punters see. Yeah. And they love, oh, kid, good old Les, here he comes, like that. But when he walks back through that bloody door again, he goes, I'm getting too fucking old for this. And he was a right miserable sod. He really well was.
I've heard that, yeah.
We stayed over one night in Plymouth, because we was going down to Red Roof the following day. And afterwards, we left the hall, went across to the pub where we was booked into. And we were having a drink downstairs, and a guy came in who'd been to the wrestling, and he saw me at the bar. I had blonde hair at the time.
I'm going to get to that, yeah.
Yeah, right. Anyway, this guy came over and he said, Mr. Kincaid, can I have your autograph, please? I said, yeah, sure, no problem. And so I've signed this autograph for him. And I tapped Les on the shoulder. And I went, "Here, Les, sign that." This fella sort of leant around and looked at Les. Les is standing there with his old tweed jacket on, like, you know, his old farmer's jacket, with his sleeves hanging down over his fingers, basically, you know. And the guy looked at him and said, "You're Les Kelly." He says, "Oh, hi, lad, that's right, hi, yeah." And he went, "Oh, now I know it's fixed." He says, "How can an old fucker like you wrestle?" He went, and he closed the book up and he went, "I think you better leave." Like, the guy said, "Oh, come on, let's be fair. Like, how the fucking you wrestle?" Les scooped his head, running him over to the wall. There was a radiator, and he's leaning on him on top of this radiator, right? And this guy's kind of screaming, like, and I went, "Oh shit!" So I walked over and said, "Les," he goes, "Fuck off." I went, "Oh," so I did. I went back to the bar. Well, Les let him go eventually, and he's come back, picked up his Southern Comfort lemonade and drunk that and went. Following morning, Les come and joined me at my table, took his jacket off, and I noticed this big red mark on his arm. I said, "What's happened to your arm, Les?" And he went, "What? I went, "What's happened to your arm?" And he's turned over and gone, "Oh, must have happened last night." He didn't know that he had actually burnt his arm on that bloody radiator. Luckily, it wasn't the guy's face on that radiator. It must have been burning the fella as well, but he actually burnt his flaming arm. Les, and not, well, older wrestlers knew it, and MCs, and so on and so forth, but not the wrestling fraternity, like the punters, that he couldn't feel pain.
Yeah.
You could actually bite a lump about him, and he wouldn't know it. He had this nervous complaint, which only a few thousand people have. He broke his leg and didn't know it. He suffered his back that many times, he didn't know he had a bad back. He didn't know he had a broken leg. Until he tried to stand up and fell over again, you know.
Jesus.
He just didn't know.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard all kinds of stories, but it's nice to get some first-hand ones from people that actually knew him, because a lot of it is just history and gossip nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah. I wrote a poem about... I started to write short stories, and I wrote poems, and I wrote poems about all the wrestlers. And he's mentioned in it. I'll give you a little insight into it first. Like, Mick McManus used to work in the office as a matchmaker. It was lovely, Mick. When he finished, Mike Marino took over. Now, we used to call Mick McManus Niggly, because one day he'd talk to you, the next day he wouldn't. Right? One day you go, "Hi, Mick, how are you?" "Hi, John, fine, lovely." Next day you go, "Hi, Mick, how are you?" Go, "Yeah. That's all you get out of a little grunt. Then Mike Marino took over. We used to call Mike Marino Mick the Fib, because he'd tell you the same story 10 times with a different ending. Then Brian Maxine, he wore a wig. It was sewn into his own hair around the sides because he had nothing on top. Right, it's sewn in, weaved in. And the only time it moved, right, is when it grew. His own hair grew a little bit and it got wobbly. Steve Vidor, he started to lose his hair. Now, you know Steve Vidor, the beautiful body and like blonde hair over the top, like a ladies' man. So he combed his hair over and lacquered it a little bit. Then there's Johnny Quango. Now, Johnny Quango was a nice guy. You know, he's my tag partner for years. Well, I was his tag partner. But could that man fart? If he farted in your car, you'd stop, open all the windows, get out, and let the air run through it for a while. You know, that's how bad it was. I've been a wrestler for many a year, and I've travelled the whole wide world, but there's none like the English for telling tales, like tales I'm about to tell. Now, you must have heard of Mick the Fib. Marino was his name. God bless the man who was trying hard to save our alien game. He tried to do what Niggly couldn't. He had no idea at all. McManus should have gone long ago, thrown out by his short stubby tool. You can't knock Niggly's work. At this he was no novice. But please, Mick, just for the boys, stay out of the fucking office. Hey, what about Jackie Pallow? It's got to be worth a mention, but don't tell him I said this. He was drawing his bloody pension. And what about dear old Les, the funny man of the ring? He makes the crowd cry with laughter. Who said his old has-been? He gives the public what they want. They love to see him joke. But when he stops that fucking about, feel sorry for the other bloke. What about Steve Vidor? the clean-cut restless affair. I've heard he's been doing so much bridging that he started to lose his hair. And what about the king of the ring, Maxine the fat little pig? The word's gone out he won't work with me in case I pull off his wig. And there's my old tag partner John, who's known as Quango as well. Boy, you can always tell when he's around by the infamous deadly smell. But joking apart, John's got a heart. You won't find a man much better. He likes his birds, but then who don't? As long as it's not put in a letter.
And was this something you shared with the other boys, kind of thing?
Yeah, some took it as a joke, and a couple didn't like it at all, like Vidor. You know, he didn't like it one little bit. That's why when I worked with him, I used to get behind him, put him a full Nelson, like, and go, and his top of his ear used to stand up like that, you know. Yeah, bastard. Yeah. Silly things like this, you know, to upset.
Right, now, your calling card was your bleached hair, wasn't it? This is what... it was unusual to see a black fella with bleached white hair, wasn't it?
Yeah. It went red. It's very, very strong peroxide. And, well, it's 60 volume peroxide, let's put it that way. And it burnt like hell. And I was supposed to have it on for half hour, and quarter of an hour I went, oh, get it off. And I was washing it off, and Mrs. Street, who did it for me, that's Adrian Street's wife at the time, she was looking at me, and she put her hand to her mouth and went, oh my God. I went, what's up? And she went, look in the mirror. So I looked in the mirror. My eyebrows are bright red, right? My hair was red. Like, no, I went, oh, gee, now, what's happened here? I went, I don't know. So I quickly phoned John Cortez, because he advised me to what to use. He said, John, he said, oh, I'm so sorry. He said, but I forgot you was an eggnog. Like, oh, well, you what? He goes, well, like, you know, you're not like one to me, are you? Like, you know, you got that tight, woolly hair, he says, which got a lot of copper pigment. He said, and using strong peroxide like that is going to turn it red. I went, leave it a week, he said, do it again, it will go white. I went, well, blonde, which what it's supposed to have been, blonde. I went, oh, right, okay then. So I walked around for a week with red hair. Now, I tried to hide it under hats and cheese cutters and pork pie hat and everything else, but I was still wrestling. Can you imagine what the punters were thinking? Like, you know, oh God, terrible. Embarrassed? Yes. Anyway, on a Friday I did it again. On a Saturday I had a live TV match. But this time, remembering this, I had half afro hairstyle at the time. So Gene did it again for me. I went upstairs, I had it on for about 10 minutes, burning like hell. I leant over the sink, I got the shower, I was showering it off, and I saw my hair falling in to the sink, and I went, whoa, shit. I had about a quarter of an inch hair left all over my head. But it wasn't blonde, it was white. My eyebrows are white, my hair was white. And she went, what happened? I went, I don't know. She forgot to dilute it down. So
oh my God.
60 volume again, you know, so I just broke it off.
Wow. But go on, sorry.
On the Saturday at a TV match, as I walked into the dressing room, there was a fella standing there, and they all went, bloody hell, look, at 3/4. That's 3/4 white and a quarter black. Because I'm half caste, you see, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and...
Yes, yeah. It always does. Did it ever bother you? I remember listening when they replayed the World of Sport on the Wrestling Channel a few years ago, that the commentary used to say things where you'd think, my God, they would never... I remember there was a joke about, I think it was Johnny Quango that was on there, and they said something along the line, Kemp Walton said something along the lines of, he says that he wears a white glove when he goes to the cinema so he doesn't bite his hand when he's having a chalk ice. And you know, did that ever actually insult any of you?
No. I mean, in a ring, you are going to get some people to call you names. You know, you have to learn to take it in one ear, out the other.
Yeah. I mean, you'd just never... He'd get arrested now, wouldn't he? Kemp Walton would be arrested now.
Yeah. It's like, you'll probably come on to this a bit later as well, but it's like in my latter part of the career when I became one of Caribbean